Hey VC, it's Danny. You may have already seen on Andrew's channel over at Tales from the Crate that Andrew and I got to meet up again for a huge haul. It was epic. It was great. As Andrew mentioned, it was a little touch and go there in terms of whether or not we were going to be able to get it together on both sides for different reasons, but we were, and it was great. As always, you know, digging with Andrew is a total treat. I only have 40 minutes on my phone of space. It's already given me a countdown, so I'm just going to jump right into this and get going. So, right off the bat, Andrew showed up and he had trade in his car, but he told me to go through it and take whatever I wanted, which was incredibly generous, you know, as Andrew is wont to be. And one of the things I got in there is this this copy of U2, Achtung Baby. And it's a boot, but Andrew's been talking about this record since he joined the VC, and specifically I even think he has mentioned owning this boot. So on top of being you know, a great U2 record that's a little scarce, I know they repressed it recently, it's a little piece of the VC history for me, so I was really thrilled to have this. Also grabbed this this promo copy of Freddie Hubbard, Hubtones, on Blue Note with Herbie Hancock, James Spaulding, Reginald Workman. I haven't had time to spin this, but Andrew told me it was where I wanted to be with Freddie Hubbard, who I'm still relatively unfamiliar with. I'm still, you know, beginner intermediate with jazz. Anyway, so I'm really blowing through this. There's a lot to go through. I also grabbed, and all of this, you know, I was protesting the whole time, like, I don't want to take stuff that is going to get you trade value, but Andrew wouldn't have any of it, and just too nice of a guy. Picked up this Anthony Braxton. It's on Arista. It's the Complete Braxton 1971, double disc. More of these, to me, completely cryptic, but really intriguing diagrams. I'm sure they're more mathematical than anything, but I don't understand them. Picked up this Allison record. Andrew's talked highly about Allison, and I've been wanting to check him out. I didn't really know where to start. So he told me this was a good place to start. Blueberry Hill is on here. It's called Backcountry Suite, so it sounds like it's in my wheelhouse anyway. Yeah. Also, Andrew had picked this one out. He knows I'm a big Willie Nelson fan, and he had this one set aside that even if I didn't want to take any of his trade, he was going to give me this one, which I really appreciate. Crazy is on here. Mr. Record Man, Darkness on the Face of the Earth. I mean, it's all Hello Walls. The really great early Willie is on here. That's just a collection of my favorite period of Willie. Thrilled to have that. Sharon Jones and the DapKings. This has a slight warp, but I use a weight like a puck when I play my record, so it plays fine. And you know, Sharon Jones and the DapKings kind of tragically passed away recently, but 100 Days, 100 Nights, one of her most famous songs. I didn't have anything by her yet, or the DapKings. I'm embarrassingly late to the game, but thrilled to finally have some to add to the collection. Still not through the stuff that I got just from Andrew's generosity. I saw this sitting there, and I have a copy of this on the East Coast, but I don't have one here, and Andrew had no problem letting me take it. This is the Bright Eyes box set from 2003. I mean, this is an artifact from when I started collecting. This is exactly where I came into records. It basically collects Bright Eyes Conor Oberst. It collects his first 5 albums, starting with basically a collection of demos and going up to Fevers and Mirrors, and I think some EPs beyond that. It's basically his entire early career in a box. Again, couldn't be happier. It's super generous, really awesome. Another one, also from Andrew, Not a Surf, Let Go. This is an album that I know both Andrew and I really, really like. Again, from around that time, 2004-ish, out on Barsuk. If you only know Not a Surf from Popular, definitely give this album a spin. I'm actually guilty of not knowing much of the rest of their catalog, but this album is a front-to-back masterpiece, as far as I'm concerned. Indie rock masterpiece. Blizzard of 77, Happy Kid, Inside of Love, Blonde on Blonde. It just, the whole thing, front to back. But especially the first 5 tracks, the opening of this album. Really great, and I was super, super stoked to have a copy. Again, my copy is on the East Coast. And it sounds wonderful. This Link Wray, Be What You Want To, on Polydor. I think Andrew just had enough clean copies that he was willing to get rid of this one, and again, he was nice enough to let me take it out of his pile. And Andrew's the guy that introduced me to Link Wray, so has a little bit of extra sentimental value that way, that he keeps furnishing me with these. I never see Link Wray, but it's fantastic stuff. It's, where has this been all my life kind of music. I know that doesn't, it's just great. It's just great music. Moving on. And this is the final one here from Andrew, but this one in particular he had set aside for me, and I was like blown away. Also kind of an omen of the kind of day we were going to be having, that I did no work and ended up with a copy of Blind Joe Death Volume 1 by John Fahey on Tacoma, this beautiful Tacoma label. I mean, what can you say? It's John Fahey. I was knocked on my ass by this, and it was just like as normal as breathing, kind of just handing it over. It sounds wonderful. It's an incredible album. John Fahey's guitar playing is unbelievable. There's a lot of people who spent a lot of time trying to learn how to play blues from old 78s. And John Fahey is one of those people, but he had a sense of humor. Blind Joe Death is a joke, as much as it is supposed to be an evocative image. It's kind of a teasing kind of a name, making fun of names like Blind Lemon Jefferson and stuff. And I think his perspective on the music that he plays allowed him to actually move the art form forward and not to be stuck. He's not Stephen Grossman. No offense. Well, no offense to Stephen Grossman. His playing to me is stiff and uninspired. Great for online guitar lessons. Not so great to listen to. Anyway, I digress. So first up, we went to Atomic, and it's Atomic. There was tons and tons of stuff there, and yeah, we just both started grabbing it. One of the first things I grabbed was Steve Earle, Guitar Town. It was a very early pressing. It was dirt cheap. Didn't have a copy. Thrilled to have a copy. It's early Steve Earle. It's great. It's exactly, this is where I want to be with country, with singer-songwriters. The late 80s, early 90s is a fertile time for singer-songwriters. And so I've been enjoying getting into that lately. Although I have not spent too much time with that record. I need to listen. So this was a recommendation from Andrew. Michael Mantler with Carla Bley. It's called Movies. The album's called Movies. He picked up another Michael Mantler album, which he showed, I think, in his first video. And he recommended that I pick this up. It's interesting, too, because the first time we got together, he picked up a Carla Bley box set, and it also had, like, a shiny metallic cover. But this is great. This is fantastic. It's guitar-led jazz, but it's thematic. It's called Movies. You can imagine these being not necessarily soundtracks, but mood pieces that feel like movies. this is great. I'm finding more and more that guitar is it's really my in to slightly more avant-garde jazz. I play guitar, so it makes a little more sense. I think I have more to hang my hat on and more to hold on to. I haven't spent a huge amount of time with this, but I really did enjoy it when I spun it. So thank you, Andrew, for the recommendation. That was a great one. Another that I do need to spend more time with, it's actually, there's no disc in here because it's on the turntable, but Swing Low, Sweet Cadillac by Dizzy Gillespie. Dizzy Gillespie is, you know, of course I know the name, but as I only got into jazz in the last 5 years, really, or at least in earnest, there's a lot of classic names that I'm not familiar with the music behind them. I just know the name. Dizzy Gillespie is one of those. And Andrew said, you know, this is my favorite Dizzy Gillespie. It's on Impulse. That was all I needed. It was a great price, so I grabbed that. Another one on Impulse here, which I was super psyched to get. Gabor Szabo, Jazz Raga. Another one that I hear so much about, especially in the VC. But I just don't know the music. But if Andrew's recommendation wasn't enough, he gave it a really strong recommendation, told me this is where I wanted to be here. Just the pictures and everything else about the record screamed, you know, this is, he's playing a sitar sitting on a Vespa. It's just, you know, I'm very excited to dig into this. And it's also the perfect example of the kind of stuff that I find with Andrew. And it feels like, I think he mentioned in one of his videos that I said, like, I feel like I have great luck. But the thing is, I just have access to his music brain, which is considerable. It's always really exciting to go digging with him. This was a cool find. Wasn't expecting to see it. Again, though, like I said, the guitar-led jazz. This is a Nels Cline trio. Yeah, Wally Shoup, Greg Campbell, Sweet Bittersweet. Relatively recent. I want to say like 2007 or something. I have not listened to this. But early Nels Cline, early Bill Frisell, any period Bill Frisell, I find I take all of that music very, very easily. It's very palatable to me. So I have high hopes for this. We'll see. If anybody knows this record, definitely leave me your thoughts down below. But yeah, super psyched to get that. You don't tend to come across that kind of thing unless it's brand new, and that was used, so I got a great deal on it. All right. Next up, Ty Segall. What's the name of this record? Sleeper. Another one. You usually would see it sealed and new and full price, and it was used and half price, which was great. Andrew's a big Ty Segall fan. He's kind of part of the new psych movement that's going on. Kind of like a, you know, an earnest rock artist of his time, you know, like if you're wondering what's happening with rock right now, it's happening with Ty Segall and King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. And as if Andrew's recommendation wasn't enough, it's just got this weird collage of different types of blankets, which is, to me, very evocative of like the early 2000s freak folk, new weird America scene, and kind of all I need to be sold on a record. I was really happy about that one. Here's another one. This is an interesting one. So I have seen this record in like art books of jazz albums. And it always stood out to me because this drawing of hands is stunning. I mean, I like to draw too, and hands are notoriously difficult to draw. They're basically another human body on top of the body, if you know what I mean, in terms of complexity. But this is just, I mean, literally just this cover had me entranced, and has been since I first saw it in an art book. They're jazz covers. So this is Mary Lou Williams. This is released on Mary Records via Folkways. And I guess this was something of a return for her to the jazz scene, and one of the first overtly spiritual jazz records. All of this is, you know, what I found out from reading. I didn't know this beforehand. I hemmed and hawed about this one. I even put it back at one point, and then right at the end I went and grabbed it again. It's a little crackly, but it's a pretty rare record, and I will say I was not in the right headspace for it when I spun it, but I don't think that means that there's not anything here for me to fall in love with. I think it just wasn't my moment. Thrilled to have this, and definitely I'm going to have to put in the time to kind of get to know it and to enjoy the fruits of this album. But again, if anybody is more familiar with this record, I would love any context, any information on it. That always enriches my enjoyment. Sun Ra and his orchestra live at Montreux, which the title alone would be enough to sell you on it, but I had Andrew right there, and he told me, you know, this is just where you want to be with Sun Ra. I think he said it was later period, but he said that the energy that you want will still be there. I did get to listen to a bit of this. I'm glad that I waited. I may have mentioned in another video, I find Sun Ra's catalog incredibly intimidating. It's huge. There's tons of represses. I don't know what's up from down. So to have Andrew, who's a huge Sun Ra fan, who really knows what he's talking about, next to me and just say, that's the one you want, made all the difference in the world. And yeah, this is great. It's out there, but somehow accessible. It's just his grasp of melody, I think, it really kind of keeps you hooked. They're not traditional melodies, but they are beautiful in their way. It is frantic and energetic and exciting and alive. Yeah, I'm really thrilled to have this. All right, this was a wall grab. This is stuck. This was sealed. It is not anymore because I don't like keeping records sealed, but it does still have the shrink on it. This is the Brian May soundtrack for an Ozploitation horror film called The Day After Halloween. Ozploitation meaning Australian exploitation. I've never heard of the film. It is in beautiful mint condition. Like I said, it was sealed. Perfect. You know, sealed stuff is always a little bit of a crapshoot. You know, you don't know what you're going to get. You don't want a warped record. But glad I picked this up. Haven't had any time to spend with it. But, you know, I love Brian May's soundtracks for films like Mad Max and stuff. And obviously his work with Queen. He's an incredible musician, incredible guitar player. So, I said it's unsealed. It's still sealed. I have to unseal this and spend some time with it. I thought of Chad when I saw this. If anybody would know what wonders this record holds, it would be Chad. So Chad, if you have opinions, hit me up. Speaking of VC members, and this was my big grab from Atomic. This one made me think of Brendan over at My Friend Morrissey. This is Substance by Joy Division. It's a promo copy. You know, the compilation of singles. It's in not quite mint, but pretty darn close condition here. You know, Love Will Tear Us Apart is on here. It's really great to have a beautiful, clean copy, even just of that song. But, you know, Joy Division is a band that my brother loved, so I heard them a lot, but I didn't get intimately acquainted with them myself. And since getting into Brendan, my friend Morrissey's videos. I've been trying to bone up and kind of rediscover them, really get to know them on a personal one-to-one basis rather than, you know, via my brother. And so, yeah, I was thrilled to get this Substance. And that was my atomic dig, right, or 20 minutes, and keep going. So next up, we went to Freakbeat. Pretty quickly off the bat, I found this, a musical anthology of the Orient India 4. This is on Baronreiter Musicaphone, which is a German label. This is a series of, in a way, the easiest way to maybe describe it is it's like a European Alan Lomax collection. Alan Danielou he made a lot of field recordings in the 1950s all around the world, and they're collected in this series, which I don't know exactly. I started getting them, and now I'm hooked on them. Put out through UNESCO. Beautiful. That's not showing you much, but beautiful, very deep liner notes. They have musical information in them. They're in 3 languages, French, English, and German. They're just gorgeous recordings. You know, it's got some great black and white photos in here. Yeah, it's just it's exactly the kind of high quality kind of a folk music archive series that I love to collect. You know, it creates the illusion that I'm building some kind of folk music archive. Anyway, continuing, also at Freakbeat, who I have great luck with their folk section. It seems like nobody's going there for folk. I found it's maybe only a VG copy, but I've been looking for this record forever. The Waterboys, Fisherman's Blues. It's a promo, which is a nice little bonus. But I mean, this is a masterpiece. This is Fisherman's Blues. You know, the huge song. Their cover of Van Morrison's Sweet Thing is incredible. The whole album, front to back, just a fantastic listen. This, you know, to me is such an icon of Irish folk music. This may or may not be, but it feels like an homage to the cover of Prosperous, the Christie Moore record. Ireland's a small enough country that all of its music seems to be in conversation with all the rest of its music, which is really kind of thrilling for me. You feel like it's a story that's small enough for you to digest, if that makes any sense. If you don't know this record, I highly recommend it. If you do know this record, you know why I'm so thrilled to get it. Like I said, I had a stellar outing at Freakbeat in terms of folk. This is Missha Era by Sean Arita on Gail Lynn. You know, this is pretty deep Irish music, the kind of stuff that kicked off the Irish folk music revival of the 70s, in addition to the revival in America, obviously. But this is actually three scores for 3 BBC documentaries that Sean Arita did the soundtrack to. Missha Era is maybe the music that he's most well known for. Really beautiful. It's classical music, but it's really infused with Irish folk music. Not the kind of stuff that I usually can't find unless I'm digging through Discogs. Not the kind of stuff I ever expect to pop up in person. But then there was more. Arita. This is just more Sean Arita on Gail Lynn. I think this is slightly later period. Late 60s. I think he passed in the early 70s. But his influence was huge. And I'm only becoming aware of him recently, but the more I find out, the more I realize, you know, this is a totemic figure in the Irish folk scene. Arita's Farewell. This is a gorgeous album. It's the last music that he recorded on this 18th, 17th century harpsichord, which I believe was made in Dublin. And this record is just Sean Arita at the harpsichord playing traditional Irish folk music. But you can hear like the mallets on the harpsichord, or you can hear the pedals. You can hear it sounds like you're in the room. It is the kind of music that you need to devote yourself to in terms of giving it some time and space to listen to. It's not, put this on and go into the other room and enjoy it anyway. But if you can, if you're interested and you can find this music and you can sit with it, I got the impression, and this is a strange, whatever, this is the image that was in my head. I felt like I was in a foreign town that I didn't know at all, and I stumbled into a church, and this music was happening, and nobody else was paying any attention. But it was eminently evident how beautiful the thing in front of me was. And I just kind of sat and listened to this record and felt like I was being let in on something. I don't know if that means anything. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's particular. It's even austere in a certain respect. But beautiful, beautiful music. This is on Kiernan Clada, I think is how you pronounce that. Early Chieftains were released on this label. Great stuff. Alright. Ocean, not sure how to pronounce it. Scottish folk band. I've been familiar with Irish folk music of the period, getting more into UK folk. The Irish stuff came from my dad. The UK folk is more widely renowned, and just so when I find Scottish stuff, I pick it up because a lot of similar stuff have been going on. This is great. I need to spend more time with it, but really cool. And sticking with Scottish folk, this is out on Topic, and in my searches for Topic records, I had sampled some of this and liked it. There's a lot of close harmony. I think the best stuff on here is entirely vocal. Close harmony, no guitar. But it's Killa and Artie, and they are a Scottish folk duo. As I said, this is out on Topic Records, which is awesome UK folk label that you really don't see too much of. Dick Gaughan was on it, but Shirley Collins is on it. Kind of a beat copy, but it was dirt cheap, and again, don't see it very often. Planxty Words and Music, same kind of deal. This is a very nice copy, later period Planxty, but you don't see that stuff very often. It's out on Shanachie, who I know we're not Planxty's favorite record label to be associated with, but they're what we have over on this side of the pond in terms of getting Irish music distributed to us. Haven't spent any time with this, but I've been on the hunt for it for years, so always happy to get missing Planxty pieces. And here's a little promo copy of Christie Moore. Is this a self-titled? This is an Atlantic release. I believe it's self-titled. And my favorite song on here is Delirium Tremens. A hilarious, hilarious drinking song. Christie kind of on the floor of the bar wondering how the man in the Guinness ad stays up on his surfboard after so many pints of Guinness. Ride On is on here, which is a more famous song. Listún Varna, City of Chicago is a beautiful song. Bicodrum, I guess, would have been the single. I think this was, Atlantic trying to break Christie to a larger audience. Well, I had a beat copy, so this is a slight upgrade for me, which is always great. Some Clanad. I've been hearing their music on like Irish music compilations since I was a kid, but I've never dove into any of their records and gotten to know them individually. So I want to say that I've seen Headley posting about them on the Facebook page. So I was happy to pick up a record and get to know them a little better. Also at Freakbeat, sorry, I'm really blowing through these. There's just so much. The Avant-Garde, John Coltrane and Don Cherry, which is a record I'd been on the lookout for a while because I'd heard Andrew mention it. And I'd seen some represses, but I wanted maybe a more original copy. And Andrew had this and decided not to buy it. But when he decided not to buy it, he recommended that I did. So I didn't blink. I didn't think about it. I just took it from him and was very, very happy. Haven't spent time with this, but Don Cherry's on that list as well of artists whose name I know and whose music I don't. Obviously, I'm familiar with Coltrane, but happy to get an entry point for Don Cherry. Also, speaking of entry points and music that I found through Andrew, is Endless Boogie, Long Island. It's out on No Quarter, which is a label that I'm familiar with because of the guitar player Nathan Salzberg, who I really dig. He's currently the curator of the Alan Lomax archive, and he plays acoustic fingerstyle arrangements. Endless Boogie is not that. Endless Boogie is like raw, groovy, like instrumental led rock. It's heavy but groovy and I don't know. Endless Boogie is a perfect name for this band. I have to spend more time with this. I've only gotten through like the first side of the first record, but thrilled to get this, and I know it won't be my last Endless Boogie record. I'm gonna cut it there and maybe try again. We'll see.